Many people in debt experience feelings of distress and anguish. Therefore, it is recommended for debtors to seek professional services from an expert and experienced Israeli debt settlement lawyer in order to act in the most efficient and professional way to reach a settlement that benefits you, achieving your debt relief, and building a more balanced and stable financial future. What is a debt settlement? A person who is in debt and finds that he is unable to repay them on time can apply for a debt settlement from the relevant creditors. Whether it is banks, the National Insurance Institute, or the execution, it is most likely possible to apply for a debt settlement. The main purpose of reaching a debt settlement is to settle the debt. In cases where a person is unable to repay his debts, he can and may request that a certain adjustment be made to his debt, depending on his financial situation. For example, by extending a long-term debt to many payments, reducing interest rates on the debt, and creating a larger and wider spread between payments. As can be assumed and understood, a debt settlement is not a procedure that can be easily performed without conditions. In order for a debtor to receive a debt settlement, he must submit an orderly request to the relevant parties, and in most cases, a referral to the appropriate committee will be required. In addition, you will most likely be asked to bring guarantors, a breakdown of income and expenses, and any other relevant data and detail. In many cases, a person who gets into debt feels distressed due to bureaucracy and paperwork, since the collection and debt system in the State of Israel is a ramified, confusing and detailed system that makes it difficult for a citizen who has no legal knowledge and training to deal with. In order to apply for a debt settlement and manage the procedure in the best way, a debt settlement lawyer is the professional person who can advise and assist you in obtaining a debt settlement according to your financial situation and personal data, while preserving your important and vital rights and interests. Filing an application through a debt settlement attorney. Applying for a debt settlement is not as simple a task as it may sound. This is a request whose purpose is to explain to the creditor or creditors why you deserve any relief in repaying your debts. Keep in mind that in most cases, the creditors will have the top hand, and if you do not repay the debt and loan as you pledged, you will likely have to deal with various legal sanctions, such as freezing a bank account, foreclosure, and sometimes even an exit order. Therefore, before you submit an application for debt settlement, it is advisable that you contact an expert and skilled Israeli lawyer who is well acquainted with the system in order to formulate a convincing and coherent application that is consistent with the law. In addition, the personal counseling of an expert Israeli lawyer in the field of execution and debt settlement will give your application greater validity, so that the chance of the relevant creditor will be convinced about the reason they presented to him will be greater. In addition to applying for a debt settlement, there are a few other issues and things you will need to address, such as filing a stay of proceedings in order to protect your assets, and of course yourself, while you wait for an answer. Receiving legal assistance from an experienced and skilled debt settlement lawyer will ensure that you do everything possible to maintain and protect yourself legally and exercise your rights. Appeal against a decision given regarding a debt settlement. It is important to know that not in all cases the application for a debt settlement will be accepted for a variety of different reasons: suspicion that the debtor is acting in bad faith, lack of trust or will on the part of the creditor, or a cause that is not convincing enough. It is possible that the application you submitted for debt settlement will be accepted, but only in part, which means that the benefits that the partial debt settlement will bring will not be large enough. Therefore, it is important to understand and know that the struggle does not necessarily end here, since a refusal on the part of a public body, such as the execution authority or the National Insurance Institute, can be appealed to the court. In such a case, it is quite important to enlist the services of an experienced and skilled lawyer who specializes in the field in order to ensure that you present a convincing case in court and receive a debt settlement that you aspire to. Managing a legal battle can be an exhausting, tedious, and even wasteful process. Therefore, it is important to manage and carry out the procedure under the close supervision of an Israeli debt settlement lawyer so that your time and resources are not wasted, and that your chances of winning the fight increase. Treatment using additional channels. The request for a debt settlement is not accepted in all cases, even if the debtor has appealed the decision to the court. Therefore, it is very important that you consult with an expert Israeli lawyer so that you can decide on the next step, as there is no choice and refuge other than dealing with the debt, and not in all cases there are economic means sufficient to ensure full or partial debt repayment. In such a case, you will have to consider declaring a state of insolvency, which is the newer version of the concept and procedure of bankruptcy. The purpose of declaring insolvency is to rehabilitate the debtors and return them to the normal course of life when they are free of any debt, even when the price is partial debt repayment or even zero debt repayment to creditors. It is important to know in advance that the declaration of insolvency entails a significant and heavy price, as this is a procedure that lasts 4 years and includes various waivers of many freedoms, in addition to a commitment to various sanctions and restrictions. Insolvency is a procedure that requires complete dedication to the purpose, because without it, the debtor will not be entitled to receive his dismissal order he hopes for. In addition to insolvency, there are a number of other procedures that may be appropriate for your situation, such as liquidation of a company or creditors meeting. In any case, it is important that you do not decide on your own without receiving professional advice and assistance regarding the most appropriate course of action for you. To that end, get help from a professional lawyer who specializes in the field in order to ensure the best route is chosen for you, your family, and your assets. What does a debt settlement procedure involve? In the process of settling a debt, the debtor and the creditor reach an agreement that is drawn up and signed in a written contract, according to which it will be decided and agreed how much the debtor will be able to pay. Anyone who has accumulated high debts and finds himself in a deep financial pit will probably not be able to repay the full debts, even if he pays and repays them until his last day. However, over the last few years, the trend has changed, and today anyone can act in a way that does not require or express a declaration of insolvency, bankruptcy, and in fact, there are procedures that do not require insolvency and will not force you to schedule a meeting with a receiver. Similar to the debt write-off procedure, an agreement regarding a debt settlement must be formed and mediated by a qualified Israeli lawyer and an expert in the field who is a professional who is knowledgeable in the issue. The professional and personal legal support will guide you to formulate a contractual agreement in a way that will preserve and benefit your rights and interests without having to pay a draconian amount or suffer property loss that you will not meet. A debt settlement lawyer has the knowledge, skill, and ability to retire and present to creditors your abilities regarding debt repayment. If the creditor objects to the agreement, it is possible to apply and reach a legal hearing. It is important to know that the tendency of the courts in Israel is to try to force the creditor's consent to the agreement as it was created. Conducting legal negotiations with the bank. In most cases, you will need good management in order to resolve difficulties and financial irregularities at the bank, but for that, you will need to get legal assistance and appear with a lawyer who represents you. Negotiations regarding the agreement will be conducted with a relevant representative, with the aim of finding a suitable solution to cover and repay the significant debt. The more powerful and diverse bargaining cards you have, the lower the actual debt rate. The implication is that if, despite everything, you will still be able to repay some of the debt that is significant, there is a good chance that the bank will come to you and give you a discount. In order to create such an agreement and arrangement, not many resources are needed, which makes it more effective and simpler compared to bankruptcy, for example. The debtor will strive to receive a payment framework that is as convenient as possible, with discounts and benefits from the creditors, such as reduced interest, cash discount, convenient spread of standing order payments, and more. If you negotiate correctly with the bank, you will be able to create a positive leverage so that the bank will be interested in coming to you and reducing the debt rate. This is how the collection procedures are conducted. In a world where a consumer lifestyle is dominant and almost sacred, and one that is run on payments and credit, it is no wonder that many find themselves falling hard and fast towards an economic abyss. People who have reached a point where they need a debt settlement, maybe private, as well as large companies and corporations. Debtors are characterized by a pattern of irresponsible, extravagant, and erroneous financial conduct, or it is a serious and sudden case that happened by surprise and now requires the mobilization of many resources, until it reaches a situation where heavy debts accumulate indefinitely and with no choice. It is worth noting that the second case is more common than you think. A debt settlement should prevent further, even more severe financial deterioration that may leave and force you to face various political and legal entities and bodies. The collection proceedings begin and take place gradually, and are opened against the debtor with an arbitrary warning. In this situation, it is always advisable to contact the creditor or creditors and act in order to get the debt settled quickly and efficiently, in order to avoid unnecessary ancillary expenses and arrears interest. In the next stage, if the debtor does not contact the creditor who will have difficulty in collecting the debt, the creditor will be forced to apply for execution and open a case. At this point, the debtor will move on to be in direct contact with the Bureau of Execution. Initially, a warning will be sent regarding the obligation to settle the debt immediately, before foreclosures and restrictive registrations are imposed on it. The debtor will be summoned and will be required to attend an investigation to be conducted by the authority, the Execution Bureau, in which his ability to repay the debt through a widespread of payments will be examined. Debt settlement is a process that can be performed at any time and in any of the stages, but it requires the guidance and assistance of a lawyer who specializes in debt settlement, who will represent you and meet on your behalf with the creditor or the other party's attorney or mutual agreement. In addition to the funds, the repayment agreement can also include shares, securities, and bonds with various corporations and companies. If you find out that your bank account is being confiscated, it is important that you consult someone. Although many people tend to think and assume that this is a situation with no solution, that is not the case. And through a professional conversation with a lawyer, it can be possible to reduce your debt and handle the issue without investing many resources, so you can open a new page in a short time and return to normative conduct. The changes introduced by the new law. The new Insolvency and Economic Rehabilitation Law has created a different legal approach and perspective regarding debtors, in order to bring them into a state of full discharge of debt, including the use of rehabilitative tools so that debtors can open a new and better chapter in life. The application for insolvency and debt settlement can and may be submitted by anyone who is unable to pay and repay his debts on time, or the amount of his debts is higher than the value of his assets. As part of the procedure, an examination will be made of the financial situation and the conduct of the debtor, which led him to the situation in which he found himself. During this period, some restrictions will be applied to prevent the accumulation of additional debts. The next step in the insolvency proceedings is the issuance of an economic rehabilitation order in which the debtor's assets will be realized and used for the repayment of the debt, and a monthly amount will be set that will be transferred and paid. If the debtor does not have assets, and his income is sufficient only for the essential personal needs, it will be possible to submit an application to get rid of the debt after the period of time, the period specified in the law. Insolvency and Economic Rehabilitation Lawyer. Law Office specializes in civil, commercial law, enforcement and insolvency proceedings, real estate, wills and inheritances. The dedicated, skilled and experienced law firm staff includes senior and leading lawyers who will provide you with quality and professional legal advice, guidance and representation, all the way to achieving the desired and best legal result for you. In the field of insolvency proceedings, financial rehabilitation, and debt settlement, the quality and extensive legal envelope we provide you is of great importance and will help you protect the important and vital interests and rights for you. In any question and request, we are at your service and invite you to contact us and get help from our team of experts, so you can be sure that you will receive a quality legal response with a personal attitude, responsibility, and dedication.